Hi, I'm Shara Miller, President of the Cleveland County Arts Council and the host of Artworks. Thank you for joining us today. My guest is Matt Duffus. Matt, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to this, looking forward to getting to know you better. Matt is an author and has written three books.
That's right.
Three books. And let's just jump right in. Just
Sure.
give us your background. Tell us how you got started and why you write.
Great. Okay. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and then went to middle school and high school in Western Maryland. And I wasn't really a big reader, surprisingly, at that point. It wasn't really until my senior year in high school when I had a really great English teacher, and we read a lot of great 20th century American novels in particular, that I became interested in English. Then I went on to college. I took one creative writing course in college, but we had a very traditional literature heavy curriculum, so it really wasn't until I started my master's degree. I went to the University of Mississippi thinking I was going to be the next great William Faulkner scholar.
Of course.
And then I fell in with the writer in residence there named Barry Hanna. And he really kind of took me under his wing. And even though I wasn't much of a writer at that point, he saw some potential in me that I didn't see myself.
So did you know from the get-go when you graduated from high school that you wanted to did you major in English?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did. I started out pre-med only because I had taken more science classes than anything in high school.
Yeah.
But I really already knew that I was headed towards English.
Yeah.
And so I spent about a semester.
English.
Yeah,
kinda
right, yeah.
Opposite ends.
Exactly, yeah. So I spent about a semester deep in science classes, and then I switched over to English.
So you switched to English, but you really didn't. I guess it was more the basics of English. Did you were you thinking about teaching at some point?
Yeah, I was thinking about becoming a professor, getting a PhD, and going that route. Because I had taken mostly literature courses at that point and literary criticism and things like that. So I was used to writing essays and analytical papers and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden in graduate school, the first story I wrote for this fiction writing class that I took kind of as a whim, I needed one more class in my schedule, and he just kind of latched onto it. And even though it wasn't very good, there was some kernel in there that he enjoyed and that he noticed. And he just kind of took me along through a lot of tough criticism that I think he was impressed that I handled well. And so along the way, I became a better and better writer. And by the time I finished my MA, I was ready to study creative writing more deeply. So I ended up going for a master's in fine arts in fiction writing at the University of Minnesota. So a bit of a change going from Oxford, Mississippi to Minneapolis.
Wow.
That first winter was a little brutal. But I survived.
Something you said early on was that you really didn't think about, you weren't much of a reader until that high school English teacher helped you with that.
Right.
And that sort of touches my heart. One of my daughters is a high school English teacher, and reading is so important to her, and I know she tries to help her students find that love of reading too.
Absolutely. So. And I enjoyed the reading I did for class, but I was really into music. I played piano and trumpet growing up, and so most of my spare time was spent doing that rather than finding books to read on my own until later in high school.
That's neat. That's neat. We never know the impact that we're going to have on people, or a teacher, or on a student. I heard an interview over the weekend. Now I don't remember who the actor was, but F. Murray Abram, and he said he was a hoodlum in high school until he went to drama, and it was that drama teacher that put in him the love of acting, and of course it went on. But anyway, that I go aside. But okay, so we're going to go back to your Mississippi days when you were thinking about maybe being the next Faulkner.
Yes.
So, Talk a little bit about that time period in your life.
Sure. That was a great 4-year period. I spent 3 years in the master's program and then one extra gap year before I went on for my MFA. And I learned so much there. It was a very broad-based MA, so I took everything from Shakespeare through Philip Roth and Toni Morrison. So I really covered about 300 or 400 years of literary history that way, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a creative writing program at the time. So I took all the literature courses and did the creative writing in addition to that. So it was a lot of work to put together a 100-page thesis of stories when all I'd been taking for classes were literature courses. But I really felt that desire by the end of that first semester with Barry Hannah that I really wanted to pursue writing seriously.
Yeah. Okay, then you go up to Minnesota?
Minnesota, yes.
Okay. Talk a little bit about that time.
Sure, and that's the flip side where I took almost exclusively creative writing courses. So I was writing 3 or 4 stories a semester, a couple of essays or poems, and the first time I attempted a novel was when I was in graduate school there, and I wrote the first half of a novel for my MFA thesis, so about 180 pages. By the time I finished that, it had been workshopped so many times, and so many people had given me feedback that I couldn't get all their voices out of my head because I was still a young writer, and so I wasn't able to pursue that novel much more because I just couldn't find my own voice amid all of that.
So do you still have it?
I have it on a flash drive somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't look at it.
You don't look at it.
No, it's writers talk about having a novel in the drawer.
Right.
Right, that first novel that you kind of learn how to write a novel by writing, but it's not necessarily ready for prime time.
It'll be interesting to see if you ever pull it out.
Who knows? Yeah.
You know, and totally change it or just finish it. So
yeah, we'll see.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So obviously the creative writing was more your style,
Right.
more your passion, and so you've stuck with that pretty much.
Yes. Every once in a while I write something more kind of critical or theoretical, but for the most part I write fiction, essays, and poetry.
Okay. I'm not going truly chronologically
That's
here,
okay.
but how do you write? How do you, is this something that every morning you get up and you say, okay, I'm gonna write today, or do you just do it when it feels good?
Sure.
What's your style? How do you do?
I'll start by going back to Faulkner one more time. He said, I only write when I'm inspired, but fortunately I'm inspired every morning at 9 o'clock. So
Okay.
I do try to keep a routine, a schedule. When I was writing my novel, Swapping Purples for Yellows, I got up every morning at 5 and I wrote for an hour before my daughter got up. She was a baby and then a toddler at that point. And so that was my 1 hour of kind of sacred writing time when I could do that. And I did that 365 days a year.
Wow.
You know, we would be up late on Christmas Eve putting together presents, and then Christmas morning I was up at 5
Still up.
doing that writing, because at that point I just felt like I really needed to write a novel. I wanted, when my daughter was born, I wanted to do something big at that point, and something that I could show to her when she got older.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you know Ron Harrell. He's another local author. And in talking with him one time, he said almost the same thing. He said, I write every day. And he gets up early. He may get up before 5 o'clock, but he said, I get up every morning, and he said, I write for however long. And he said, that's what I tell people. If you want to be a writer,
Yes.
you have to do it every day.
Exactly.
You just do it every day.
Yeah, I really believe that. I don't get up at 5 anymore. I have more time during the day than I used to now that my daughter's 12.
Right.
So that's very helpful. But I do try to make it a routine that I do at least Monday through Friday, if not Saturday and Sunday as well.
You know, it's for those of us who go to a job, we know we need to be there at a certain time, and we usually know what we're going to do while we're at work. But when you're writing and it's all self-motivation to do
Sure.
that, you could get up at 5 and you could sit down at your pad or your laptop or whatever you write on. But if you don't have those words in your head,
Right.
does that ever happen? Do you just sit there?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Part of the reason for the routine is to avoid that, because your mind gets used to knowing, okay, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write, and so your mind is more prepared for it. I also have a couple of tricks that I'll use. One I stole from Ernest Hemingway, which is to end your writing session in the middle of a sentence. So the next morning you at least have to finish that sentence as kind of a way to get going.
Right.
Or
right.
sometimes I'll read the last page that I wrote to get back into the voice and the style. And between those two, I usually am able to get going again. But there are those times when I stare at the blinking cursor or tap my pen
Yeah.
against the desk longer than I would like to.
Do you have more than one books or stories going at the same time? Okay.
Yes, I do. I wish that I could be kind of narrowly focused on one project. I think I would finish faster, but I do tend to flit between a couple of different things.
Okay.
Right now I have 2 different novels that I'm working on, and so part of it depends on what feels good that day, and part of it I do try to sustain it for a week or so with one or the other, because it gets cluttered in my mind
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, I would
But
think
I
so.
do try to go with which one is hot on
Okay.
a particular day.
Is there ever a chance that, since this is fiction that you're writing, that the characters would blend over from one book to the other?
That did happen when I was working on my novel. I was working on another novel at the same time that ended up not working well enough to publish. But I did have almost the same main character protagonist in both of them for a long time. And I didn't even realize it at the time. And finally, it dawned on me after about 100 pages of the second novel that I needed to change that character, because otherwise I was writing a sequel to a book that wasn't finished. And that seemed a little challenging. So I did
Yeah.
course correct.
Right.
But it took longer than I would have liked to figure
Wow.
that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. My mind's racing thinking
Yeah.
of other questions to ask you about
Yeah.
this. But we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes and find out more about Matt Duffus.
Great.
Today I'd like to make everyone aware of the risk of skimmers. First, let me tell you what a skimmer is. A skimmer is a device that is often installed at a gas pump that is used to steal credit card information. When you use your card at the pump, a skimmer is disguised to look like a card reader and collect both card and PIN numbers that can be used to replicate and create counterfeit cards. Now let me tell you some of the best practices to protect yourself from skimmers at the pump. Always ensure that the tamper tape at the pump you're using is intact. Skimmers are installed inside the pump housing, and this tape ensures that the pump has not been opened. Always try to use the pump closest to the entrance to the store. Skimmers are often installed at the pump furthest from the store and the camera systems. Pay inside whenever possible. Cover a pin pad when entering your pin number to protect against pinhole cameras.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, your host for Cleveland Connections, the show that explores what's happening at Cleveland Community College. Join us as we sit down with members of faculty and staff to discuss programs of study, upcoming events, and other exciting campus news. We'll have a new show for you each month on C19 TV, or you can stream us online at c19.tv. Tune in and connect with Cleveland Community College on Cleveland Connections.
Probably not. I have to study for my exams next week, and my dad would kill me.
I can't make it. I've got a big game tomorrow night. I want to make sure I'm in good shape.
No, I'm good. I don't want to get in trouble. My parents would kill me.
Nah, I gotta fill out scholarship applications.
Everyone has at least one good reason to stay away from drugs and alcohol. Find your reason today and get back to enjoying life.
Welcome back to Artworks. I'm Shara Miller. My guest this month is Matt Duffus, and we were talking about your writing and getting in that not habit, but or routine, but to get up every morning and work on your books, your novels, your papers, your collections, whatever. Tell us just a little bit about what you have written, the
Sure.
3 that you have published.
Okay, the novel Swapping Purples for Yellows came first. It's both an academic novel, it takes place on a college campus, but it's also a family drama. It's about a family, the mother, the father, and their 2 daughters. And it takes place over homecoming weekend one year when a very wealthy young alum is back to give a big gift to the university. And there's debate about what the gift is going to be for. It might change the life of the husband in the family, it might not. And so there's a little bit of a mystery element to it, but it's mostly kind of a literary family drama.
Okay.
Dunbar's Folly and Other Stories is a collection that I wrote over about 18 years.
Wow.
It has the second story I ever published, which was published, I want to say, in 2003, and goes all the way up to stories I wrote until about 2019. So about 16, 17 years. And those stories are more varied. They span the country. There's a story set in California, there's stories set in Texas, Minnesota, North Carolina, all over the place. And so when I think about themes there, I think about what does it mean to live a good life? What is the significance of family for individual characters? There's a lot about creative work, so artists, musicians, that sort of thing as well.
So that's a collection of short stories.
Yes.
Is there a chance ever that any one of those short stories could be developed into a novel?
One of them I did try to develop into a novel, and sadly the direction it headed in, the theme became so kind of depressing to me that I thought, I don't know that I want to pursue this. I think I'll leave it as a story.
Yeah.
And so I did. And so I don't know that I'll develop any of them more, but I did find through the editorial process, working with my editor, that several of the stories did become longer and they moved beyond the initial ending that I had in mind. So that was really interesting.
Yeah. And your third?
Yes, is a poetry collection called
Okay.
Problems of the Soul and Otherwise.
Okay.
I didn't come to poetry writing until about 2015. I'd been teaching a lot of American literature courses at Gardner-Webb, and as we read more and more poets throughout the semesters, it just kind of stuck in my mind that I wanted to try it. Not that I would ever, accomplish what they did, but I wanted to try on my own and see what I could come up with.
Okay.
And so that's a chapbook. It's about 25 pages. It's a short collection.
Okay, so collection of poetry, collection of short stories, a novel.
Yes.
What do you enjoy the most?
Right now, I'd say novel writing, but I usually say whatever I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I tend to, for some reason, be a seasonal writer. Poems tend to come more in the fall. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the weather or what does it. Maybe it's the relief of summer finally being over.
Yeah.
But so it could be, if you asked me in 2 months, I would say I'm a diehard poet. But right now I would say novel writing. But just
Okay.
fiction in general, really.
Okay. So you're working on a couple of novels right now?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm working on a murder mystery that takes place on a college campus again.
Okay.
And then I'm working on another novel that is more literary, and that one is kind of so tenuous, I don't really talk about it yet, out of superstition.
Yeah.
You know, some writers say you can talk yourself out of a book because you explain everything and then you don't
Yeah.
feel the need to write it anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm still kind of in the discovery phase
Okay.
for that one.
You mentioned, college campuses a couple times, and it kind of jumped over that part of your career.
Yeah.
You have been a college professor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I taught part-time at Gaston and Limestone and Gardner-Webb, and then I was fortunate to move into a full-time position at Gardner-Webb, where I taught in the English department and was also writing center director. And then last year, for a year, I was at Earlham College in Richmond, Indiana, as their writing center director.
Okay.
And now I'm taking some time just to focus on my writing and
Yeah.
see what's going to come next.
Yeah. So, what would be your advice? A lot of people think they're going to be the next great American author.
Right.
But they don't know how to get started. They don't, or they've written something, they don't know how to get it published. What's your advice?
Sure. The first thing I would say is that you have to read a lot, and not just in whatever genre you write, but just in general. I had a professor say, read everything you can and then forget it, because somewhere in the back of your mind it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
And so it used to trouble me when I would meet students on the first day of class and they would say, I just like to read my own writing. I don't like to read other people's writing. And I would think it's going to be a long semester all of
Yeah.
a sudden. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to create that routine. If it can't be every day, because I know that's kind of a privilege, even if you just have a regular day or two a week when you sit down and you know you're going to do it, that's really important. And then the third thing I would say is to try as much as possible to finish what you're working on. I have several things I've abandoned over the years, but it's just a good habit to try to get to the end of something and feel like you've kind of done something satisfying at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah. Then, once somebody has written something that they feel good about,
Yes.
and they feel like it might be worth trying to get published, and I'm sure there's a long process, but
Yes.
give us the short version of how do you get published? What do you do?
Sure. What I did for my first book, the novel, was I sent it out to novel contests. I had a trusted reader who told me, I don't know if this has enough broad appeal that you're going to sell it to a big New York publisher like Penguin Random House or someone like that. So he said, look at some smaller independent presses. And a lot of them do have a novel contest. You submit your manuscript. Sometimes it costs a little money, like $20, $25 to submit it, but if you win, you get the status of the award and you get some money and that sort of thing. And so I was a finalist for the SFK Press fiction contest, and they sent me a long editorial letter and said, here's some suggestions, here's some things we think you could do to make your book even better. And then at the end they said, you can take this advice and sell it to somebody else, or you can take this advice and send it back to us.
Wow.
And I thought that was so generous of them that
Yeah.
after I spent about 6 more months reworking the book, I sent it back to them. And even though it didn't win the prize, they still agreed to publish it that
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, along those same lines, you and I have something exciting
Yes.
to let people know about, that you're going to be teaching a class at the Arts Council
That's right.
coming up
Yes.
in October.
In October, yes.
Right.
It's called Jumpstart Your Writing, and it's about a lot of the things we've been talking about. We're going to talk about how do you get that initial idea down on paper, how do you develop a writing routine, what does the beginning of a work look like, whether it's a novel or a memoir or a poem. So we'll look at some great opening lines, opening paragraphs, that sort of thing. And also just kind of work out what is the unique individual routine that works for each writer.
Right.
So it's a lot to cover, but I hope we'll get there.
It is, but it's the beginning, and I think we talked about that after that initial meeting, might be able to branch. I mean, if you have
Yes.
more people that just want to talk about poetry, then
Right.
you go that direction. If you have novelists or potential novelists, you go that direction. So
Yes, absolutely.
there are a lot of ways that this could go.
Yeah, I'm very excited
Yeah.
to see where it goes. We've also talked about a teen class as well, which I think would be really great. But
Yeah.
the one thing I never want to lose, even if I'm not in a traditional classroom setting, is the opportunity to help other writers. And I think this is a great way to do that for the
I
folks
think
of
so
Cleveland
too.
County.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're very appreciative that you're willing to do this. And so just want to let folks know that to check the Arts Council
Yes.
website and Facebook page to sign up, because we do need folks to pre-register so
Yes,
we can be
definitely.
prepared for it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great way to jumpstart
I think
their
so
writing.
too. Yes, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it's been a pleasure to have you here today and to find out more about you and your writing. And I hope that maybe we've inspired somebody to either take this class or just to get up and get started writing at whatever point they can.
That would be
So,
great. Thank you for
yeah.
having me.
Well, you're so welcome. And thank you for being here with us today, and look forward to seeing you again later. Check out Jumpstart Your Writing on the Arts Council website.
Hi, this is Steve McCatherine, cross country and track and field coach at Cleveland Community College. Thank you for watching C19 TV, a broadcast service of Cleveland Community College.
Do you like to work with your hands, build, make something work, show, I've done this? Turn your interest into a career. Construction trades at Cleveland Community College can give you the skills you need. Well-trained electricians are in high demand. CCC delivers hands-on training both in and outside the classroom. CCC makes it simple for students to get ahead, whether they want single courses, certificates, diplomas, or associate degrees. Now the question is, are you ready to start your journey today?
Tune in to Senior Moments, C19's newest series, to learn about senior living in Cleveland County. I am your host, Jackie Sibley Newton with Brookdale Assisted Living. Whether you are a senior, planning for your own future, or helping someone make decisions, Senior Moments has got information to share. We talk about the wealth of services, activities, and healthy living options available to you here in our area. Tune in and learn more about how to live your best life. That's Senior Moments right here on C19 and also on C19.tv.